Chapter 20, A Refusal to Listen. In chapter 18, we looked at the unbelief Abraham manifested when he was promised the land for his descendants who would be as the stars of heaven. The sign of circumcision was actually given to accommodate Abraham's lack of faith. God meets Abraham where his mind is and gives him circumcision as a sign of faith, a sign that God would do what he said. Therefore, to God it is a sign of unbelief, but to men it was a sign of belief. Unbelief pierces the heart of God. It is a manifest distrust in him and his love. Abraham's unbelief is evidence of the carnal mind at enmity with God. We don't think we are at enmity with him when we really are. Coming to the time of Moses, we find the same unbelief manifested. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. But Moses protested to God, "Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt?" Exodus 3:10-11. Moses says, "Who am I to appear before Pharaoh?" But in these words contains the underlying sentiment of, you must be making a mistake because you have chosen incorrectly. This was not the intention of Moses, but it is the effect. The Lord offers a number of assurances to Moses, indicating that God would help him, but still Moses is plagued with doubt. But Moses protested again. What if they won't believe me or listen to me? What if they say, "The Lord never appeared to you"? Exodus 4:1. After this third protest from Moses, the Lord proceeds to give Moses a sign. The need to give Moses a sign is evidence of unbelief. As we considered previously, the Lord gives to Moses the sign of the rod turning into a serpent, followed by the hand of Moses turning to leprosy. Then the Lord spoke the following. The Lord said to Moses, "If they do not believe you and are not convinced by the first miraculous sign, they will be convinced by the second sign." Exodus 4:8. Moses and Aaron came to Egypt and showed the signs to the Israelites, and they believed, just as the Lord had said. Aaron told them everything the Lord had told Moses, and Moses performed the miraculous signs as they watched. Then the people of Israel were convinced that the Lord had sent Moses and Aaron. When they heard that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen their misery, they bowed down and worshipped. Exodus 4:30-31. Although things had started well, it wasn't long before unbelief surfaced in the Israelites. After Pharaoh refused to let the people go, he punished the people due to the Sabbath reforms that Moses tried to bring to the people. Pharaoh demanded the people make bricks without straw at the same rate as previously. When the Hebrew foremen could not maintain the same rate, they were beaten. The people naturally turned against Moses. The Israelite foremen could see that they were in serious trouble when they were told, "You must not reduce the number of bricks you make each day." As they left Pharaoh's court, they confronted Moses and Aaron, who were waiting outside for them. The foreman said to them, "May the Lord judge and punish you for making us stink before Pharaoh and his officials. You have put a sword into their hands, an excuse to kill us." Exodus 5:19-21. The confidence of the Israelites evaporated, and now Moses became distressed with events unfolding. We note that Moses humbly writes down his private exchange with God and reveals to us the battle in his heart. Then Moses went back to the Lord and protested, "Why have you brought all this trouble on your own people, Lord? Why did you send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh as your spokesman, he has been even more brutal to your people, and you have done nothing to rescue them." Exodus 5:22-23. We dare not pass judgment on Moses, for we are all tempted to discouragement when things do not go as we desire. But we see the mistrust of God expressed in these words, and this mistrust has implications. Our Father in heaven works tenderly with Moses and reminds him of the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then makes 7 promises to Moses, reaffirming the covenant, giving blessing, and stating again that he will deliver the people from the Egyptians and bring them into the promised land and be their God. When Moses faithfully delivers this message to the Israelites, they respond negatively. So Moses told the people of Israel what the Lord had said, but they refused to listen anymore. They had become too discouraged by the brutality of their slavery. Exodus 6:9. If you are being freed from tyranny, why would you turn it down in unbelief? One reason could be that they blamed their slavery on God. The truth of the matter is that many in Israel had assimilated the customs and lifestyle of the Egyptians. Many had given up the Sabbath and other statutes of God. Having forsaken these precepts, they exposed themselves to Satan's scheming to stir up the fears of the Egyptians and force them into slavery. The difficulty of their situation was because of their own actions. But being human, they did not take responsibility, but projected the problem onto God. If Moses was having trouble believing God, and the Israelites refused to believe in the promises of God, what effect would this have on the Egyptians? If the Israelites were hardening their heart against what God was offering them, could this potentially affect the hardening of Pharaoh's heart? And it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. Hebrews 11:6. There was almost no one in Israel who believed God would deliver them. Moses wrestled to believe at first, but his faith grew stronger over time, and thus he basically stood alone in believing God would deliver them. Moses appears to make the connection between Israel's lack of faith and the potential for Pharaoh to doubt. Go back to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and tell him to let the people of Israel leave his country." "But Lord," Moses objected, "my own people won't listen to me anymore. How can I expect Pharaoh to listen? I'm such a clumsy speaker." Exodus 6:11-12. The Israelites' complete lack of faith, along with the fact that they blamed Moses for their troubles, would have impacted the appeal that Moses made to Pharaoh. Rather than being full of confidence and courage, he would have to wrestle against doubt and disappointment in his appeal. God told Moses from the beginning, Exodus 3:19, that Pharaoh would not listen. But how much of Pharaoh's resistance was connected to Israel's resistance to believe? As the Spirit of Christ reached out to all the Israelites in Egypt, he must face their opposition and lack of faith. Great was his sorrow that virtually no one believed him. The sacrifice of the Passover lamb was commanded for the Israelites. It was a fitting symbol of what they were doing to him. Just like in the case of circumcision, God took that which revealed unbelief and turned it into a sign of belief. In the same way, the sacrifice of the Passover, which symbolized the unbelief of the Israelites piercing Christ, became a symbol of protection and deliverance for them. How patient, loving, and forgiving is our Father in heaven. The vital point here is that the sacrifice of the lamb was not a meritorious action by the Israelites to save them, even if they thought this to be the case. Done in faith, the sacrifice of the lamb was a means of bringing the people into the channel of obedience, which allowed God to protect them. The people did not perceive that the slaying of the lamb symbolized what their unbelief was doing to Christ. But even though they did not understand, God still saved them from the destroyer of the firstborn. We will address the destroyer more later. The point here is that men move towards God in a framework of misunderstanding what is actually happening. But God uses where they are at to bring them into a deeper relationship with Him. The lack of faith of the Israelites would result in all of them dying in the wilderness who were 20 years old and above, except for Caleb and Joshua. This is the sad reality of unbelief. None of the adults who left Egypt made it to the promised land because none of them believed except for Moses, Aaron, followed by Caleb and Joshua. What if the Israelites had believed God? Could this have impacted Pharaoh? If all of Israel had prayed for Pharaoh in faith, would it have made a difference, and might the plagues have stopped earlier? We can't know for sure. Either way, the destruction of Egypt was not due solely to the wickedness of the Egyptians while the Israelites were innocent. Like in the story of Lot and his family being taken out of Sodom, it wasn't because they were righteous that they were saved, highlighting the point that God did not love the Israelites more than the Egyptians. But like Lot, the Israelites finally decided to do what Moses asked, and God was able to work with that. But none of them did anything to merit being saved. These things happened to them as examples for us. They were written down to warn us who live at the end of the age. If you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. 1 Corinthians 10:11-12. As we approach the final scenes of Earth's history, we are faced with a similar situation. The kings of the earth wish to rule the populations of the world and keep them subservient to their goals. In order for the Lord to rescue his people, the world will pass through 7 last plagues in order for this deliverance to be accomplished. How shall we respond to these events? As we read of their unbelief, do we realize our own potential to do the same things? Will we seek God for help in holding fast our faith to Him? Or will we forget we are just like Israel and doubt like them? Our attitude will have an effect on the leaders of the world and those around us. May we believe that our Father will deliver us. May a better understanding of how God worked in the past give us wisdom to face what is to come. We will face hardship and difficulty, but He will never leave us nor forsake us if we place our trust in Him and walk in His commandments.